Mr. President, to undertake government business. Mr. Speaker, we started our work of cooperation, mutual respect, and with a determination to serve our nation. It was so clear on both sides our zeal to get things done. Mr. Speaker, these nominees are all known to us. All of them have served as members of Parliament, except Dr. Akoto Afriye, who is no more a member of Parliament. All those to be considered today are members of this august house. Mr. Speaker, we have heard colleagues making contributions on this matter, and it appears some of the submissions are very personal, are very petty, are very partisan, are in a way aimed at holding people accountable for that which they have not done. Mr. Speaker, Macbeth said something. Macbeth said something. Power made him commit murder. Whom did he kill? His best friend. After committing that offense, he extolled the virtues of his good friend. He knew Duncan was a good man, but then he blamed it on his vaulting ambition. And this is what he said: I have no spare to prick the size of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which overleaps itself. Are we in this chamber here to demand our Shylock's token? Are we here to demand our pound of flesh? Are we here to blame our discretion, the exercise of our discretion, on our vaulting ambition? Mr. Speaker, the constitutional imperative makes a much more reasonable demand on us. And as I heard my colleague George say a moment ago before we entered this chamber, that power is transient. For the many senior politicians in this house floor, they know that this power, this democracy, can turn any day, any hour, any time. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So if today, Mr. Speaker, if today, when Haruna Iddrisu was on his feet, we all kept quiet. I beg you to listen to me in silence. Haruna was on his feet. We listened to him in silence. Mr. Speaker, if today we want to reduce this constitutional imperative to petty interests, I beg to say that that is not the path to pursue. But I hope that there is nothing like a predetermined petty partisan intent. I hope there is no second like that. And I hope that in the exercise of our discretion, we are going to go on a path that is reasonable, that is acceptable, that governance to be in motion for the benefit of the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, each one of them has served this country. Each one of them has served this country. An issue that came up regarding Frontiers Healthcare Services. Mr. Speaker, this issue, brought to the vetting of nominees, came up through a statement by an honorable member. What was his contention? That a company has been awarded this contract, and that company is not even registered in this jurisdiction. Suddenly, that contention lost its way. Now it was reduced to the owners were not Ghanaians. Then it was reduced to who are the directors. Mr. Speaker, we had nominees coming to tell us what they know, and eventually the nominees took time to run us through the whole contract and make available a copy of the contract to us. Mr. Speaker, it is honorable. Let me listen to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the only member of Parliament who made a statement on the floor of this House on the Frontiers Healthcare Services, which was duly admitted by Mr. Speaker, and that statement is on record. I said that the Frontiers Healthcare Services was registered in Ghana on the 21st of July, few weeks to the airport being opened. So the Honourable Deputy Majority Leader is totally out of order. He's misleading this House. You are misquoting me. I said that that company was linked to another company with foreign interests registered in the Dominican Republic, the parent company, but from Ghana, and I've always made that point. And we have raised substantive issues about procurement, about breaching the Fees and Charges Act. It was all in my statement. About violating the Health Institutions and Facilities Act. Substantive issues have been raised, which have not been responded to. That is the content of my statement. So I will not sit here for you to distort what I have said and what is on record in this House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, take you and move on. Mr. Speaker, I would always want to anchor my submissions on this House floor on facts. Mr. Speaker, the statement by Honourable Okudzeto-Ablakwa is a matter of record. Hansa was on my witness, your statement that you made, and I beg to submit that your contention was to the effect that the company was not registered in this country. It was not qualified. And I believe that, Mr. Speaker, the Hansa of that day will bear me out. In any event, when their submissions were being made, nobody stood up on a point of order. If they have disagreement, they can come back. So, Mr. Speaker, I shall proceed. So all I am saying is that, Mr. Speaker, the Healthcare Frontier Services contract with Ghana Airport Company, the documents that were needed by members of the committee were made available, and that, Mr. Speaker, it even became clear that prior to that decision, the company wrote to PPA, and PPA responded, urging the company to use its internal system to ensure the contract was awarded. Mr. Speaker, that is a matter of record. They made it available to us. So, Mr. Speaker, for anybody in this House to say that indeed there was something irregular regarding procurement, Mr. Speaker, it is really not based on facts, and Mr. Speaker, it is aimed at throwing dust into the eyes of the good people of Ghana. My next point, Mr. Speaker, on PDS, Mr. Speaker, PDS, clearly, there were conditions precedent, and the company had met those conditions precedent, except that, Mr. Speaker, going forward, the government, ECG, were supposed to do some enhanced due diligence. As a result of this enhanced due diligence, that resulted in this issue of the questionable guarantee. Government took steps to do the needful. So, Mr. Speaker, for anybody to raise any matter outside of this would only be an attempt to miscommunicate the facts to the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have raised another important point, which point is captured in the report. That is 2020 elections incident that came up. It is true, and the concerns are well grounded. But Mr. Speaker, as a growing democracy, we know that this is not the first. So if there is a call for us to investigate some of these incidents, I welcome it. Parliament must look into it. But in order not for Parliament to be seen as being selective, perhaps it is important in dealing with this thing holistically to look at all violence-related issues way back 92. 96, 2000, 2004. Mr. Speaker, I do not have the luxury of time to narrate what I went through in 2012 elections. I don't have the luxury of time. It only took the grace of God for me to survive that day. I do not wish that on anybody. So when we are raising issues regarding violence in elections, Mr. Speaker, these are serious matters. Therefore, let us now look at investigating all these matters and coming up with recommendations. Mr. Speaker, after all, after 2016 elections, we were bold as a house to pass a law to deal with vigilantism.
Member,
so it means that
Honorable, be winding down.
They gave leadership 20 minutes each. Yes, they gave leadership 20 minutes. 21 minutes each. I'm not entitled to 10 minutes.
Yes. It was in respect of majority leader, minority leader. So,
Mr. Speaker, I've taken his. He's yielded to me.
So
yes. So he is not speaking. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at violence on elections in this country holistically. Therefore, let us, going forward, resolve to get appropriate committees matter so that, Mr. Speaker, we can preserve our democracy. Mr. Speaker, how Akumsi? Mr. Speaker, I have personally known her as a woman of substance. Mr. Speaker, she started her political career as a woman organizer. Mr. Speaker, at a point where it was difficult for us to get a candidate and all the men were afraid, they thought they could not win. Sit down. Strongly to be our candidate for Ewutu Senya. Mr. Speaker, she came to Parliament in 2013. Mr. Speaker, I remember 2012, once I was suffering in Ewutu, she was also suffering at Kafua. People will be chasing her, threatening her. Mr. Speaker, I remember on election night, Mr. Speaker, it was not easy for her. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this issue came up. On record, we know that the police is investigating this matter. Mr. Speaker, is it a case that one of us will look at her in the face and we say that she should pay a price for a sin she has not committed? Are we of something unrelated to the very happenings of that day? Mr. Speaker, there are women here. There are women belonging to your side. Would we want to subject any of our women to this trauma we are subjecting her to, Mr. Speaker? Isn't she our sister? Isn't she a mother? Doesn't she also have children? Mr. Speaker, to the extent, Mr. Speaker, that some people would raise issue about grammar. A ministry she has never been, Mr. Speaker, as if we are doing aptitude test, objectives. 1 + 1 is what? 2 + 2 is what, Mr. Speaker? Her role is to champion policy. Mr. Speaker, she is going to occupy a political office by policy that she is going to work with a team. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Afriya Akoto, is it the case that there are some other reasons other than that which has been stated? No. Mr. Speaker, I am pleading with my colleagues.
Sit down.
All the attempts being made to personalize issues must stop. We are in this together. We cooperated during the committee hearings. And then, Mr. Speaker, we are 26 members on the committee. So I do not want some colleagues to think that or create the impression that some nominees have been rejected. The committee has not rejected anybody. If by consensus we have recommended some, by majority decision, some other 3 colleagues are supposed to be considered. Then, for those who have not really paid attention to the report,
Honorable member, may you wind up?
Yes, I want them to know that a majority decision is a majority decision. Mr. Speaker, I will conclude on the supposed impression being created by some of our colleagues about my respected learned colleague Kojo Okonkuma. Mr. Speaker, he who has never slipped in politics before should be the first to get a very small stone on somebody, cast it at him. That Kojo Okonkuma is a Satan. He's a bad boy. He's this. Mr. Speaker, a question was put, and we are all here. Are you a director of an entity? He said no. Then quite suddenly, somebody says he has lied on the oath. What is the contention? That the wife is a director and he didn't answer truthfully. That is incorrect in law. And in fact, was he asked whether or not his wife was a director? Mr. Speaker, exercise of discretion, Article 296. Honorable Member Fashama, when leader was on his feet, we listened to him in silence. Let me finish. 296. Mr. Speaker, Article 296 of the Constitution. I've taken leader's time and I'm entitled to the 22 minutes. I'm entitled to it, leader. Article 296 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 296 types of discretion. That when we have that mandate to exercise discretion, we have a duty to be fair. We have a duty to be candid. We have a duty to exercise him within due process. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the offense of Kojo Okonkuma? That is government spokesperson? Which portfolio somebody can occupy tomorrow? Mr. Speaker, I will conclude by saying that if there is any vaulting ambition which is overleaping itself, it should not mislead us into hurting ourselves. We owe it a duty to Mother Ghana and to our democracy to do that which is right, not through intimidation, not through threats, not through all manner of undermining each other, Mr. Speaker. We have worked as a team. Together, minority, majority, we work as a team. This is not a time to demand a pound of flesh from anyone. Governance of this country must continue. Governance must continue. The President,
Honorable
officers, and Mr. Speaker, I invite my colleagues to support so that today we pass them for them to take their oath to serve their country. Thank you so much indeed.
Honorable Muntaka Mubarak.
Thank you. Thank you. No, we are ending. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to start my contribution by quoting our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, precisely. Sit down. Our oath of allegiance. Go ahead. And then the oath of a member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in the oath of allegiance, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, it reads, I, Muntaka Mubarak, do in the name of Almighty God swear, solemnly affirm that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established, that I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of Ghana, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So help me God. Speaker, this is an oath all of us took. The second one is the oath of a member of Parliament. And the Speaker, with your permission, I read it again. I, having been elected a member of Parliament, do in the name of Almighty God swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established, that I will uphold, preserve, protect, defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, that I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of a member of Parliament. So help me God. Mr. Speaker, someone may ask, why am I quoting this? Listen to me. Why am I quoting this? Mr. Speaker, I'm quoting these standing orders to remind all of us, as members of Parliament who swore an oath to be responsible and to act fairly to protect the Constitution of the Republic. Mr. Speaker, let me say, the past 2 weeks have been a big nightmare for many of us in this chamber. Nightmare because the excessive pressure being called upon us by our constituents, by our friends, by people outside this house, asking all of us to do one thing or the other, forgetting we swore an oath. The Speaker, this politics of when I have power, let me use it to teach my opponent and show my opponent where power lies. The Speaker, we have done that to ourselves again and again and again. Today, we are at a crossroad where God in His own wisdom has brought us neck to neck. In my view, God has brought us neck to neck for us to learn a lesson from it. For us to put the bad ways of yesterday away. Because Mr. Speaker, in defending the Constitution, I don't want to make reference to Article 296. And Mr. Speaker, Article 296, and I read, where in this Constitution or in any other law discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, A, that discretionary power shall be deemed to be implied a duty to be fair and candid. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capriciously, or biased either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with due process of law. Okay, I'm not interested in the C. The A and B call upon all of us to a duty. Mr. Speaker, when people are calling on the minority, do this, do that, do this, I don't fault them. Why am I not faulting them? I'm not faulting them because I'm happy my colleagues, the Interior Minister and the Defense Minister are here. The excessive use of power, the excessive use of these military people is suppressing in many instances the will of our people, killing our people, hurting our people is the cause of the anger that you are seeing people forcing the minority to act outside their oaths and outside their discretion. Mr. Speaker, I just want to encourage my colleagues. Every human being can err. It is also our responsibility to forgive each other. But let's take into account all the things that are happening. When we get the second opportunity, let's treat each other fairly and don't treat each other with disdain and abuse. Mr. Speaker, I have known the two colleagues, both in their capacity as deputy leaders. First, Honorable Ambrosary. I got the greater privilege to be with him in Pan-African Parliament. We've traveled extensively, a lengthy conversation. What have you? Mr. Speaker, when he got the opportunity to be Interior Minister, and I put this into him when he appeared before us, recruitment into the security services, Mr. Speaker, is the least said about it, the better. Mr. Speaker, over the period of 2017 to 2020, they advertised once and they claim that the advertisement in 2017 was the one that they kept using to recruit till 2020. Mr. Speaker, this we all know is not true. This we all know is not the fact. Mr. Speaker, there are many of the vigilante boys that we all knew on our community, in our area neighborhood, find themselves into the security services. And then the list is say, oh, let's buy the vigilante. Once you have absorbed yours into the security services, you say everybody should dismantle it. And we all saw the action and each action of this group during this election. Yeah. I'm not surprised a lot of people are saying, let's hold them accountable. They are responsible. But we all forgot. In this very chamber, we called the Election Security Task Force to come and brief us. And in this chamber, they told all of us that the head of the Security Task Force is the IGP. Yes. And in all their deployment, in their regions, they are taking the political actors aside. Yet, because of the excesses that happen across the country, everybody thinks that it must be Honorable Nick and Honorable Ambrosary and Honorable Kandapa that must be held responsible. Why? It is because of the things that have been happening. I want to plead that look, enough of all the wrong things. Let's try to chart a path that will give confidence to the ordinary citizens that the political actors are not those who are manipulating the security agencies. And when the security agencies go wrong, the political actors will be firm to make sure that the necessary actions are taken against them. That is the only way that we can restore confidence in the ordinary citizen. I want to make this comment that in an attempt to say that we must...
Hold on. The right honorable speaker is taking back the chair. Honorable, you can go on.
I will say that in all the actions that will be taken, both the majority side and the minority side, we should remember our oath. Let's remember our oath. Let's remember the Constitution, Article 296. When the opportunity comes to use the discretionary powers, let's make sure that we are using them in a fairly and not in a capricious and arbitrary manner. Mr. Speaker, having said this, I just want to speak lastly about the nominee on food and agriculture. Mr. Speaker, the nominee for food and agriculture, and people think that, oh, it is out of hatred. It is not constitutional. I heard my colleague, Honorable Atachia, Article 296 imposes a duty to be fair, candid, and not to act in a capricious and arbitrary manner. And Mr. Speaker, I want to draw my colleague Honorable attention that this nominee, Dr. Akoto Efuye, upon assumption of office as the Minister for Food and Agriculture, decided classmates who had retired and was sitting down for 4 years, he recalled him to come and be Deputy Chief of Cocoa Board, Deputy Chief Executive of Cocoa Board. When the gentleman arrived, by name Mr. Yao Edu Ampoma, there were skirmishes and resistance from Cocoa Board. He seconded him to his office and titled him the special advisor to the minister on cocoa, and instructed Cocoa Board to pay him the salary of Deputy Chief Executive for Cocoa Board and give him all the entitlement for the Deputy Chief Executive of Cocoa Board. Honorable Atachia, that is abuse of Article 296, the discretionary powers that this Constitution imposes on him. He abused the office to the benefit of his personal friend and classmate. You cannot say that this is not against the Constitution of our country. That is absolutely against the Constitution of our country. Not the only thing he did. When you go and look at Cocoa Marketing Company, CMC, they are both, over the years, will always have a former representative. It will always have the chief executive of Cocoa Board himself. It will have the workers of Cocoa Board representative. He became the Minister of Food and Agriculture. Cocoa Board was now put under him. He decided that he was going to do it in a very arbitrary manner, disregarding the laydown and the law that established the board. And you won't believe it, today, until that board was dissolved, the chief executive of Cocoa Board doesn't sit on that board. There's no any staff, worker of Cocoa Board on it. There's no farmer sitting on that board as required by law. Mr. Atachia, that is abuse of Article 296. Because these are legal things that are there that he needed to follow. He decided to disregard them. Mr. Speaker, he did not only bring only a friend. He brought so many others who are retired and were sitting home and gave them fat contracts and fat salaries just to please himself. Mr. Speaker, such a person is not someone that we should trust. The responsibility of being a minister in such a person's hand. And Mr. Speaker, when he appeared before this house, it will interest you to go and pick the video and watch. Even his demeanor, sitting before a committee of parliament, leave much to be desired. He put the question back to you. Maybe he forgot. that he was no longer sitting in his office. He was Secretary of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, when he was asked about his touting of creating 2.2 million jobs in the planting for food, when he was cornered, he then said that, 94% base workers. And then he said 4% were in the value chain, and then 2% were extension deliveries. Mr. Speaker, maybe he forgot he was talking to a committee of Parliament. When you break the 94% of the 2.2 million, it gave you 2.1 million who were just farm laborers. Farm laborers, and yet he was screaming all across the country that using planting for food and jobs, he has created 2.2 million. 2.2 million jobs. The figure, the on the farm, they are prisoners. If you come to my farm, we hide them. After planting the maize, they go and sit home. When we are harvesting, they go and sit home. He created the impression to Ghanaians that his sector has created. When it came to the value addition, we asked him, so what do you think the 4% comes to? Mr. Speaker, the 4% comes to 91,475. And we asked, so tell us, what kind of value addition have you done? And after they said to him, okay, you should just take maize. What value addition had happened with the maize production? He couldn't. He just said, value addition. He couldn't answer. Then it came to the extension delivery. The speaker, 2% of the 2.2 gave me 45,737. And I asked him, how many extensions can you do? Yes, I didn't expect him to have all the figures working with it. He said, he can't know the exact figure. But I asked him, are they up to 20,000? He said, no, obviously they are not up to 20,000. So how come that you have of this plan to 2.2 million? That was giving about over 45,000. Where else do you have the extensions workers? He couldn't. Mr. Speaker, you could see that when he appeared before the committee, he was not candid. He was not truthful. He was not sincere with the committee. And that is the reason that the committee, we insisted that this person should not be fit to occupy the office again. I'm making a plea to colleagues. I know, I just reminded all of us about our oath. I hope both sides of the house will be acting not with hateful. We will be acting not because we dislike people. We will be acting not because people are our friends, but we will live up to our oath to be sure those who really qualify to be ministers be okay. Those who do not, for the sake of our country, in the national interest, we must make sure that they don't become ministers. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the report on about 3 of the nominees, it was said that it was by majority decision. Mr. Speaker, it was split decision. When I say split, because it is 13-13.
Do for majority. Do for majority.
Yes, whichever way it is, it comes to the floor for voting. But I want the record to reflect properly. It was a split decision. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that someone may take the opportunity to correct, amend the report, so that we can make progress. Mr. Speaker, I thank you sincerely for the opportunity to have contributed to this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, before we proceed any further, I want to know from the chairman of the committee was it a majority decision or a split decision? The two are not the same. What we have in the report says decision. We are aware the committee is made out of 26 members, 13 from each side of the House. And the report says majority decision, which meant that it is not a decision of one side of the House. And so this last conclusive part of the Chief Whip has thrown some issue up for consideration. And he also happened to be an active member and a senior member of the Appointments Committee. And the chair who represents the committee presented the report. So I want to know from the chair, was it a split decision or majority decision?
Mr. Speaker, at every part of the report...
Honorable Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Just before you land, Honorable Mama Yalga, you have been on your feet for some time. What is the issue?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since Minority Chief Whip was winding up, when he raised the issue of whether or not it was a majority decision, I wanted at that point to correct the records, but then until he assumed his seat. And then luckily, Mr. Speaker, you have brought up the issue for clarification.
No, please. I didn't bring up the issue. He stated categorically that it was a split decision, not a majority decision. I didn't raise that issue. Yes, please.
Yes, so Mr. Speaker, I was going to say that the majority on the committee actually voted against the approval, and then 11 on the other side voted for the approval. The chairman, 12 on the other side voted for. The chairman did not cast his vote. The chairman did not cast his vote. So in effect, it was a majority decision in favor of not approving it.
Honorable members, this is a serious matter.
Yes, it's a serious matter.
It's a serious matter because it goes on the critical issue of integrity. And this is coming at the end of the debate. And so please, let's get this right. Is it a majority decision or a split decision or minority decision? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, we swore an oath to be truthful at all times. Mr. Speaker, the mistake came from us. It wasn't the chairman who used his own to name it majority. Because what truly happened in the committee was that we didn't vote. We as a group came to say, Chairman, for this one, let it be a majority decision. You know, because we were called minority, that are minority. So when we were communicating, we said, record it as majority. So the figure, absolutely, that is what we reported to the chairman as a fact. I will say because I've realized I've made a mistake, I'm going to tell lies and hide. I swore an oath, and the truth is that we communicated to the chairman that record it as majority. So if they are recorded as majority, the figure, in the committee meeting, that is what we as a bloc, because we didn't vote one after the other. We just came as a bloc to say, Chairman, on this nominee, we cannot support it, but let it be the majority. So, Mr. Speaker, I withdraw my earlier comment because the mistake came from us. What the right thing maybe at that committee, what we should have done was to insist that this was split. but we didn't do that. We communicated to the chairman that this was to be the majority decision, and therefore the chairman, Mr. Speaker, reported accurately, and I will not want to lie and try to create some confusion. The mistake came from us. I hope if the press report or if any opportunity avails itself, we will recollect that we are 13 and they are 13, and therefore, if we were not in support, it will be a split decision. So, Mr. Speaker, I thought that it was important that I be truthful on this and report exactly what happened in the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honorable Deputy Minority Leader. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with this new information, the members from the minority side, the 13 of them, are not for the approval.
Actually, I wanted today a clarification.
The 13 members. The 13 members from the minority side on the committee are not for the approval of the 3 members. So it means that the 12 members plus the chairman also making 30 from the majority side are for the approval of the 3. By that, it is a complete split decision. 13-13. So if the minority members communicated to the chairman that they should make a report by majority decision, with this new information, Mr. Speaker, the report should be amended by saying that by a split decision, then we will be moving as a house. Because if you go by majority, standing is that majority members of the committee, which means that the number that voted for their approval is more than 13. But that is not the case. That is not the case. So, Mr. Speaker, let's amend the chairman should amend the report to say by split decision. If not, we'll be communicating something which is not a fact to the public. Thank you.
Honorable members, please committee to help us. And so I want to hear the chairman of the committee, because the issue is both constitutional and legal. Let's listen to the chairman to clarify this issue as to what happened at the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the morning of Monday, when the committee was to meet to take a decision, the leadership of the minority, or the ranking member, asked for a meeting with me, and they said they don't want, or they want bulk voting. So instead of calling one to vote, they don't want the situation where some people will vote differently from their leaders. So they would rather that we present these ones as unanimous and these 3 as majority. That I call the leaders of the majority, the vice chairman and his team, said this is the proposal of the minority. Are you agreeable to that? So, well, we are agreeable. So the report is a true reflection of the decision of the committee. But the deputy leader is not a member of the committee. So regrettably, you cannot amend our committee's report. None of my committee members is saying I've misrepresented the facts. So thank you for your goodwill, but unfortunately, we cannot use your goodwill. Mr. Speaker, the report is a true reflection of the decisions the committee took. And I thank members for their contribution to the debate. I ask Mr. Speaker now to put the question on the report. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the House what happened before this committee, appointments committee, was set up. During the setup of the committee, the decision on the 13-12, Mr. Speaker, is very reflective. Mr. Speaker, when the debate for the 13-12 ensued, members, including my very good friend, Honorable Member for Parliament for Aswasi, came up to say that even though it is 13-12, to all intents and practices, on the committee, on convention, on the committee, it's 13-13, and that chairman, even though they are not supposed to be voting, have been consistently voting. And so the committee was set up as not 13-12, but as 13. Mr. Speaker, if it is true that that is what transpired, and I know it is true, then a standing order 2115 prevails. And it is with that understanding I want to read 2115. 2115 says,
Honorable member, it's when there's division.
That is why it was majority.
Honorable member.
Majority. Yes.
Honorable member, 2115 is when there's a division at the committee meeting. They have not raised any issue about division. They just told us that what actually happened was that the vote depended on a gentleman agreement that when the leadership of the NDC side presented to him the chairman that let's take it as action, he took their words in good faith and then put it their majority decision. But there was no vote. That is what we are being told. Now, this is a matter I believe that we need to consult each other because of the constitutional and legal issues. We have to take an adjournment and consult on this issue. Honorable members, doubt has been raised. Doubts have been raised on the decision of the committee. It's not you. It's not you. Yes. First Deputy Speaker. First Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Appointments Committee. I saw you were about to. Yes.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am up because of the suggestion that a doubt has arisen. Mr. Speaker, no doubt has arisen without due deference to you. The report is a true reflection of what happened at the committee. Even the chief whip who raised the matter has come back to say that indeed that was what was agreed. So, Mr. Speaker, the details are that on their side there was disagreement. Some were voting for the candidate, some were not, but they didn't want that to happen. So they say, they told me they don't want some to vote differently from leaders. So there's no issue, there's no dispute that there was a majority, but not unanimous. And so it is just to assure that the bulk vote will be protected, that suggestion was made and it was agreed. So there's no doubt that indeed, Mr. Speaker, there was a majority. And that was the case. It was agreed here, announced as the decision of the committee before it was reported to the clerk. So,
Honorable Chairman, I have no problem with the term consensus, but I have a problem with the term majority because of what has been stated. You are 26 in number, and so when you say majority, it will have to mean there was a figure showing that one side voted for more than the other. That is why you say majority. And so if you can tell me what that majority meant, then there will be no doubt left in my mind. Then I can put the questions.
Mr. Speaker, at the committee level, we are not supposed to sit in sides. At the committee level, if I'm wrong, I'll be glad to be guided. At the committee level, we are supposed to work as a group. Indeed, numbers did not emerge in any of them because we agreed that there are people who would not support these particular candidates. We don't want to vote so that we identify who voted for and who against. So let's agree that majority of us support this candidate, minority are against them. Now, Mr. Speaker, the suggestion is a configuration that because there are 13 from NDC and 13 from MPP, then they couldn't have been a majority. That is a configuration being created on the floor of the House. At that meeting, at the meeting we held here, no such discussions were held. Nobody raised the issue that we are 13 of 13, and so they have issue with the majority. We discussed how we were voting, and we agreed that in this instance we will not cast a vote, but we agreed that the group will be by consensus and this group will be by majority. So look at the report of the committee is what is before you. Nobody is resigning from the committee. No member of the committee is challenging the report. The fact that somebody configured that they are equal sides and therefore we should have equal votes, or that the chairman could not have voted as suggested by Honorable Ayaga, so there are 12 votes. It's a configuration that is coming out of here. It's not coming from the committee. And I suppose, Mr. Speaker, the committee's report, as was filed, as has been spoken to, as has actually been supported by members of the committee on the floor in their place is what we should work with. To do deference to you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you.
Honorable Chairman, at the committee level, we don't have majority and minority. You sit as a committee of 26 members. By the standing orders, all the 26 members have voting rights. There is good reason why the first deputy speaker is a member of parliament and therefore represents a constituency. And the standing orders recognize that you have an inalienable vote which cannot be taken away from you. And that is why you have the right to vote. And so if you have 26 and the report is that majority decision, we are not looking at that majority with party colors. We are looking at the totality of the number 26. And therefore, at the minimum, it had to be, let's say, 14 as against 12. That, because if you have 13, there's no majority. It's a split. And in the split situation, there's no decision. At that time, when you are in division, then the chairman has a casting vote according to 2115. That is when the committee, that is the standing orders. Now, we took it that the majority decision that you convey to us is talking about numbers, not sides. Unfortunately, at the end of the debate, this matter has been thrown open. Even though the person who did that said, I want to speak the truth. What happened was a gentleman agreement. You understand? Now, the facts narrated was a gentleman agreement between leaders. Honorable members, you have every right to differ from the view of the speaker. But there are ways of doing that. It's not by shouting, no, no, no. That one has no effect. And so let me explain this. Because of that issue, I was left in doubt and I wanted clarification. That's why I threw it back to you as to what constituted majority in the circumstances. I saw the majority leader has been itching to contribute. I'll give the majority leader the opportunity. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, the report from any committee is supposed to be a true reflection of what happened at the committee stage. The report that has come to us is reflecting what the committee decided on. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Ayaraga, the Honorable Muntaka, the Chief Whip, it was who said that that aspect of the report was incorrect. And then when he finished, the Honorable Ayaraga joined the train and said to us that indeed there was voting and the majority at the time indicated that the 3 persons should be rejected. Now the Honorable Muntaka comes back to say that there was no voting in the first place. So what the Honorable Ayaraga sought to tell us was incorrect. And the Honorable Muntaka has stated indeed what transpired. Mr. Speaker, you are following up to say that because the numbers were 13-13, necessarily if there is a match. or a majority decision, as has been narrated by the chief whip of the minority, it should relate to figures. That because the numbers are split there, 13-13, if the minority, and you are right, the Speaker, in saying that at the committee level, where consensus is the order of the day usually, we don't carry party coloration to the committee level. We endeavor not to do that in order to build consensus. But where we cannot achieve consensus, then, Mr. Speaker, we may have a majority decision. Mr. Speaker, regardless of the number, and of course, as you do know, in committees, the standing orders of the House are observed. The Speaker, so the standing orders of the House, in other words, plenary issues also apply at the level of the committees. The Speaker, our orders provide that in plenary, nobody is under any obligation to vote. So the mere fact that there are 26 and mention is made of decision doesn't mean that it should reflect 13-13. People are not, even in plenary, obligated to vote. That should be taken into consideration. So, Mr. Speaker, the chair, with respect, cannot say that because they are 13-13, necessarily they must relate to 13-13. And that there may be a split. Mr. Speaker, that is not the correct position of our orders. And indeed, our orders relate to that in 113(5). A member is not obliged to vote. So one cannot strictly relate to the numbers at the level of the committee and say that necessarily there must either be a split decision or majority decision. So, Speaker, to the extent that nobody is challenging the chairman of the committee and the corroboration that you have heard from the minority chief whip, I don't see any doubt being created anywhere as far as this matter is concerned. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader, your contribution clearly identified an argument in logic. We are looking at the facts, what took place. We are not to be left in logic. I had no doubt when we started the debate, after I read the report, that it was a majority of the members at the committee level who voted for the three to be submitted as majority of the members of the committee. I had no doubt in my mind that the consensus was agreed upon by the members of the committee. If at the end of the debate an issue is raised about that term majority and the reference was we, now that we has been defined to mean the leadership of one political group in the committee level. That was what the chief whip of the minority stated, that we, which we was referring to the NDC group, that is the we. Now, the chairman of the committee said that when the leadership came to him and said that the we, which is meaning the NDC group, which are made up of 13, has agreed that it should be majority decision. He took that as the gospel truth and in faith, and that's why he captured, but not numbers of voting. Chairman, did I get you wrong?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry if that is the sense I presented to you. I said after they spoke with me, I called the leadership of this site, and they also agreed. Then we came here as a committee. And then it was put across and agreed before I announced that this is what we have agreed as a committee. So it was not just the leadership, Mr. Speaker. It was the whole committee that agreed before I put that into the report.
Honorable members, the chairman has clarified the situation that after he was contacted by the leadership of the NDC group, he called a second meeting where the members were present, and then he put the question, and then the committee agreed. That is his explanation, and it is only members of the committee that will be allowed to contribute. Please. Yes, Honorable Ablakwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As has been duly acknowledged, Mr. Speaker, this is a very significant matter, far-reaching implications. And by our oath of office, we must be truthful and sincere to the facts. As the Minority Chief Whip has, we clearly proceeded on some assumptions that we need to now critically look at. The fact of the matter is that when we met in committee, we did not go into division properly, so-called. Individual members did not vote. This is my third term on the appointments committee. What has always transpired is that chairman will say, okay, this is a nominee, we are done vetting. So, Honorable Kujato, how do you vote? Honorable Muntaka, how do you vote? Every member is asked to vote. That did not happen this time. Our side had met earlier in conclave as a caucus and decided that we would rather want to vote as a block. So we analyzed in our caucus every nominee, one after the other, and we decided that for these three people, we will say, oh, we're looking at the standing orders. We're looking at Order 172. The standing orders in Order 172, if I'm not mistaken. Our understanding, two options: consensus or majority decision. That was our understanding when we were in conclave. So, because of this strictures of our standing orders, we decided that for these three, it is majority decision. And then for the others, we are looking at consensus. So that is what our leadership came to communicate. So, I mean, the heavens is my witness that we did not vote as individuals. There was no division properly so called. So this matter that has been raised is a very, very important matter. Especially as we know that it's a 13 membership. And if we avert our minds to Standing Order 1146, Standing Order 1146, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I quote, in a division are equal, the motion shall be considered lost. So, to the extent that there was no voting, and 13 of us came to the committee with this decision en bloc, and we had the understanding that the other side was also en bloc, and we didn't vote individually. by this standing order, by this provision, really there is no vote. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we may have to go back to committee and do the proper thing, and then amend our report, and then we can take a vote. Because if not, we risk running into serious crisis. We're standing under 1146 because 13 of us came with a decision. The 13 on the other side also had their decision, and that is an equal. It's a split decision, and a split decision cannot be said to be a majority decision. So the facts, and I think that we must all pay attention to the facts. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we should go back as a committee and take the decision properly.
Order 114 deals with procedure on division. Hadn't gone into division, and so that order you quoted is not. That is why at order 2116 clearly states that the provisions of order 114 into brackets procedure on divisions shall apply to divisions in the committee. The committee hadn't gone into division, and so those provisions are not applicable. Please, honorable members, with your leave, I will want to go into conclave with the leadership of both sides, and we'll come back. Honorable members, this issue is a very important issue. We can't just brush it aside. Leadership of the House, I have proposed we go into conclave. If you have any better guidance, please let us hear you. In the absence of any guidance from leadership, I will proceed to suspend sitting for 10 minutes. 10 minutes for us to resolve this issue, then we'll come back. The House is accordingly suspended for 10 minutes.